The fourth altered character Nola is here, so let's go take a look at her kits, team comps, and rotations. First and foremost, Nola can choose any of the 5 elements as her own element. Each and every one of Nola's elements have different weapon passive and skill effects. With that in mind, I've made separate video guides for her, each divided into 3 parts. First part will be covering the general kit, while the second part will be a brief explanation of a specific element's passive and skill effect. Lastly, there's going to be the team comps and a guide for their rotations. Now without further ado, let's get started. First of all, we have Sonic Skyrider. Dodge then hold to summon Nola's bike on the overworld. Once mounted, you can let go of the dash button, and the only time that the bike will disappear is if you get damaged, stop moving, or accidentally press the dash button again. By the way, it also has this feature where you can execute non-boss enemies if you're riding the bike for more than 10 seconds. This doesn't have a cooldown either, so yeah, poor Zeke got bike creep. Moving on, let's head over to combat. Here's her discharge, Skyriding Slash. Cool animation and all, but unfortunately we will be cancelling this one most of the time. Next are the ground and airborne attack chains. The ground attack chain is called Wind Rider and the airborne one is Cloud Riding. Both of these will be empowered once Nola casts her skill, but damage wise we're gonna have to go with Wind Rider instead. Speaking of the skill, it's called Explosive Energy. Once casted, we will gain temporary invincibility and deal some damage. After that, we will enter Super Speed mode and gain Hyper Body plus the empowered normal attacks, called Super Sound. At the same time, each attack landed grants 1 stack of Overload up to 6 stacks. Now where do we use this Overload stack? The only way to consume the stacks is by using the Twin Slashes and Linked Slashes combo. These 2 attacks can only be used during Super Speed mode. Simply tap the attack button and hold to trigger Twin Slashes, then keep holding in order to follow up with Linked Slashes. If you successfully consume 6 Overload stacks, you can trigger Extreme Charge and deal damage equal to 300% of your attack. By the way, we're not done yet because she also has a sub-skill called Flash Rider. This will appear after entering Super Speed mode for 5 seconds and can deal a good chunk of damage, but do take note that Super Speed mode will automatically end after using the sub-skill. Both Super Speed mode and Flash Rider have different effects depending on what element Nola is currently using. While some elements require you to use the sub-skill, some elements also don't, so you might find yourself simply quick swapping with her weapon. Alright, let's go take a look at her weapon advancements. At A1, Super Sound's damage multiplier is increased from 6% to 20% of your attack. A3 ignores 15% of the target's resistance and gains cheat death every 60 seconds. A5 is sustained, and A6 is the usual huge damage boost with a whopping 30% increase in final damage. Then we have her matrices, which are all generic damage buffs. The 2-piece increases attack by 24 to 30% and also buffs Extreme Charge multiplier to 400% of Wanderer's attack. Meanwhile, the 4-piece gives 24 to 33% boost in elemental damage and an additional 7% when we enter Super Speed mode. All in all, Nola's advancements and matrices doesn't make any drastic changes on her kit, so to be honest, if you're low on resources, a single copy is fine. But if you have extra to spare, then I suggest taking the 4-piece for the damage buff. Now, what does Frost Nola have to offer in terms of weapon passive and the skill effect? For weapon passive, we have the usual Force Impact, which is a damage buff and fusion of Frost Volt. Then we also get Swift Cut, all of which are something that we should already be familiar with at this point. We do have this new effect called Liquid Nitrogen, which increases our frost damage by 6% when entering combat. It lasts for 30 seconds and will also get automatically removed after using Flash Rider. Moving on to the skill effect, which gives us Super Speed mode for 28 seconds. Each normal attack by Nola, or every time we receive non-excess healing, we get 1 stack of Thermal Convergence with a limit of 10 stacks. Casting the sub-skill will consume all thermal convergence stacks, and we gain frost damage boost based on the stacks we consumed. At the same time, we deal frost damage equal to 500% of our attack, plus the stack count times 70% of our attack. This counts as passive damage, which lasts for 30 seconds. While we're at it, let's also cover what Altered Element does for Nola. First, we have Shifting, where we get 30% increased elemental damage if 3 altered weapons are equipped. Then we have Explosive Energy. Basically, what this does is it gives Altered Nola's normal attacks some increased damage. This effect can trigger up to 1 time every 1.5 seconds and is counted as normal attack damage. If there is one weapon of any other element equipped, the damage is further increased to 1.3 times. In addition, explosive damage can only be boosted by none other than Titan equipment's rare stats. Now we take a look at the skill effect. Altered Super Speed mode lasts for 23 seconds, and during this duration, we get increased maxed HP. At the same time, Nola's Wind Rider and Cloud Riding gets additional damage equal to 166% of our max HP, not exceeding 30 times of our attack stat. This counts as skill damage and is unaffected by any damage boosting effects. Lastly, there's the sub-skill. Flash Rider for Altered Nola deals damage equal to 6,250% of our max HP. This damage does not exceed 1,000 times of our attack stat. It counts as skill damage and is also not affected by any damage boosting effects. Alright, before we jump right into team comps and rotations, here are some tips and things to remember to help you in your overall team rotations. Since Frost comps has always been sweaty with rotations, I recommend you to disable the discharge animations. This way, the camera won't zoom in on Nola's boobas every single time she casts her skill, and you'll be able to see the timing when Roslyn throws her anchor. Unless, of course, you prefer playing that way. Then we move on to skill or discharge cancelling. First in line, we have the buff from Ling Han's discharge. Make sure that you jump cancel only after the swords pop out, or else you won't be able to get the buff. Next is Yanuo's skill. As we all know, the way you play Yanuo changes when you reach A3 due to how she gains extra skills. Because of this, rotations with her are a bit different before and after A3. But don't worry, because we will be covering both rotations in this video. Another thing to mention on A6 gaming is the cancelling of her extra skills after using it 3 times. The reason for that is that we're only after the stacking buff from casting the skill. Basically, we cast the skill 3 times, get the buff from A6, then cancel the rest by doing a normal attack. Also, I've said this again and again, but if your Yanuo is only A3, then follow my advice and just do the below A3 rotations. Trust me, your overall damage is going to be better that way. Third on the list is Roslyn's discharge last second animation cancelling and jumping at the end of the skill for a smoother rotation. Jump cancelling the last part of her discharge is needed if you want to do an optimal rotation because every second counts for Frost. On the other hand, jumping at the end of the skill is only to lessen the scuff, so this one is actually optional. Lastly, there's Nola's Twin to Link Slashes combo. You can actually link this attack with the ground normal attack chain. After doing 5 normal attacks, immediately tap and hold to trigger twin slashes, then keep holding to end the combo with link slashes. Doing it this way can save you some time, and like I've said earlier, every second counts for Frost rotations.